We are a group of friends, bound by our appreciation for liberty and good podcasting. Free-minded thinkers from all walks of life, our values come together with one accord to discuss the common culture and news of the day, along with whatever random crap is going on in our lives. Welcome to the Union of the Unknowns.
Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of Union of the Unknowns. Thank you all for joining us. And this evening, we have a very special guest with us who I will get to last. Save the best for last. And in the meantime, I'm going to introduce the other unknowns. First of all, you have me, Ashley, Think, Change, Repeat, super unknown. We have the ATL connector, Jackie.
What's up?
We have Stella from Down Under.
Hello there.
We have Terry Canary, our favorite Spaniard.
I'm even more unknown than Ashley.
We have Tunes.
Hey y'all, Free State, New Hampshire, 603 represent.
We have America's sweetheart, Ismcant.
How's everyone doing tonight?
And then for our special guest, we have Sal Mayweather. What's up, Sal?
What's up, guys?
How are you?
Good. I'm honored to be on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you were able to join us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God. Thank you for the invite.
Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and kick it off and just see if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, the projects that you're working on currently, and, you know, of course, where people can find you. We'll have all of that stuff, but basically just kick us off a little bit of your, you know, your journey, how you got where you're at, all that stuff.
Right. So, I mean, I've been around in the libertarian movement for a while. I guess I'm like one of the Ron Paul class of libertarians. And I was like a minarchist. I was an LP kind of guy. And then I realized that that was a sort of a waste of time. And I was just sort of just like, you know, treading water. So that's when I sort of really went full force into Agorism. And it was the best decision I ever made, obviously. You know, this is like back in like 2012 and everybody's getting like Bitcoin and 3D printers and stuff when it was just getting started. So yeah, and then I started to develop a following online and I was like, well, I might as well use that platform to promote the version of anarchism that I subscribe to, which is Agorism. And that's how Sal the Agorist was born. And yeah, it sort of just spread from there.
So I did want to say that Sal was absolutely instrumental in my fully awakening really about just realizing what nonsense government was on every level, like the regulation, gun control, any of that stuff. So I had sort of had some questions in my mind, but then I talked to someone who would share the Free State or the Free Thought Project stuff. So I started following them. And then one day your page was suggested to me. I had no idea what agorism was or anything like that at all. And I started following you. And then after that and seeing your jank memes, then
Nice.
That was a game changer really for me as far as what I, you know, where I stood on the government. I still had a lot more to learn at that point, but
yeah, that's sort of the formula is that, you know, you draw the traffic in with the memes and then you trick people into learning about these like really important and like complex socio-political topics. And that's sort of, it's been working so far. So
definitely.
Ashley,
Are you worried?
Ashley, can I butt in? I think
Yes.
for our legions of fans who might not know, it might be useful if Sal would describe what his idea of agorism is and what an agorist is.
Yeah, sure. So agorism is really sort of a strategy to achieve a libertarian society. And rather than focusing on political means, we focus on entrepreneurship, specifically like gray and black market entrepreneurship outside the realm of the state. And it's really just a strategy to achieve an anarchist society. A lot of people think like it's a sort of competitor to anarcho-capitalism or something like that, but it's really a strategy to achieve those ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
So
would
does that
say,
mean sorry, Toons, I'll let you go first.
no, no worries, no worries. I would say it starts on the individual level, and I've been known to say in the Discord, I'm a huge proponent of backyard chickens for every
Yes.
household in America. Backyard chickens. If you don't have them yet, get them. Hit me up. I'll send you some eggs.
Yeah.
Chickens are one of the easiest things that you can set up on very limited space. You know, it takes a weekend to build a coop. You can do it out of pallets. You know, throw some chicken wire together, and it's a couple bucks a week if you can't get food scraps from down the street. Everybody get backyard chickens.
Well, one of the things everyone always says to me is like, how can I get involved in agorism? Like, I don't want to get involved in this black market anarchism. Like, I'm going to go to jail. And I say, no, it's not like as it sounds. You know, we're not engaged in any, like, I mean, you can be as risky as you like, but the advice I give people is to just try to do three things. Become your own bank, get a 3D printer, and grow your own food. And if you could do those three things, you can have a much more significant degree of freedom than the average citizen does today. And yeah, absolutely, raising chickens is one of the best ways to do that.
So does that mean we have to give up on kind of mainstream society and just form our own parallel structures and kind of drop out in many ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an accurate way of putting it. Per Byland, who's a great agorist thinker, has a paper that I actually included in the book Anti-Politics, where he talks about the two types of agorist strategies. The horizontal strategy and the vertical strategy. And basically what he says is, you know, in the vertical strategy, you sort of drop out, you sort of fall out of these state structures, and you create local production facilities that bypass state regulation. So a chicken coop would be a great example of a local production facility that bypasses state regulation. Another would be like a 3D printer or a crypto miner, or something along those lines, an aquaponics rig, really anything like that. And then you combine that with the horizontal strategy, which is just peer-to-peer trade, voluntary trade. And when you combine those two strategies, it becomes very powerful. And we see that with obviously like cryptocurrency exchanges and you know, how free-flowing 3D printed gun files are nowadays. And it's sort of, it's very difficult for the state. Once that Pandora's box is opened, it's very difficult for them to stuff it back in.
Yeah.
Now, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say a great example of that is just all the gun buyback programs where people are 3D printing up, you know, these plastic parts and making thousands, selling them back to the state.
That was great. Yeah, that was excellent.
I just saw some guy just made like $21,000.
Yeah, it did.
And people will like email me and they're like, Sal, when's the next sale? When's the next sale? And I say to them, well, instead of, you know, sign up for the newsletter, but instead of worrying about when the next sale is going to be, look up when your next gun buyback is. You buy a $200 or $300 printer and you can make thousands of dollars that weekend. So it really does pay for itself. And you can help drain money from the enemy, and you can help secure this, you know, gun rights. It's a win-win-win. And obviously you keep the money in the Agorist community the whole time while you do it. We're facilitating an exchange with cryptocurrency. It's really a beautiful thing if you think about it.
If someone wanted to learn some more information and how to really kind of start with that, because it does kind of seem overwhelming a little bit, like where should they start with your book, Anti-Politics? Like, does your book go through that, or what do you suggest?
So 3D Printer Go Burr is just one. It's one of my businesses that's sort of one of my Agorist inclined businesses. If you want to learn more about 3D printing, I did an episode a while back. It has to be 2 or 3 years ago now, with Ivan the Troll and 3D Printer Go Burr, Control Pew, who are like two of the major 3D printed gun designers. You can find that episode. It's an episode of my podcast called The Agora. The name of the episode is So You Got a 3D Printer. And we sort of walk everybody through the whole beginning steps. again, that was like 2 or 3 years ago, but it basically everything kind of still holds up. So it still all holds true, more or less.
Interesting.
Awesome.
What do you see happening if the state tries to do its, this CBDC stuff and tries to, really clamp down? And then people are talking about the state trying to get rid of people's chickens by putting all these crazy regulations in. So do you still see a way out if they really try and clamp down?
Well, it's interesting with the CBDCs because, right now, the way I look at it is the central bank has sort of printed themselves into this trap. And it's just basic Austrian business cycle theory. If they stop printing money, you're going to get a recession. It's a painful but necessary period where all of that malinvestment gets liquidated. Or they can, like a junkie, take another shot in the arm, and they can keep printing money. The trouble is when they print that money, they can't have us stick it underneath the mattress. They don't want you to go out and to save it or to buy gold or silver or to buy guns or something like that. They want you to go out and consume. They want you to go to the bar, and they want you to go to Target and go to their big retail stores and stuff like that. And that's how you sort of keep this service sector economy alive without any production. So what the CBDCs are going to do is they're just going to sort of target where you can and can't spend that money. So in other words, you'll get a little notification on your phone. You've got 2,000 Federal Reserve notes, but you can only spend them in certain places. You can't spend them everywhere. And that's how they're going to sort of target stimulus. And that, of course, will be like the opening of Pandora's box. Slowly but surely, it'll be like they're going to track your transactions. They want to know what you're buying. There'll be a social credit score just like they have in China. It's all a matter of time. And no, I don't think it's hopeless. I think that actually, I think we're winning. I know it sounds crazy, but I think that as they sort of get more and more desperate and they sort of are grasping at straws. And that's why you get things like, crazy laws, ridiculous laws and things like CBDCs and all this inflation. It's just because they're trying to maintain legitimacy. They're trying to maintain power, and it's slipping through their fingertips. And everybody thinks that the government is this immovable object that can't ever be defeated or changed or anything like that. But the U.S. government is only a couple hundred years old. It's not. It's not this. It's not like a fixture on the wall, right? It's not something that can't ever be removed or changed. And I think people are wrong in thinking and viewing it that way.
I would say the U.S. government in this iteration is only since Lincoln 150 years old, and then the U.S. global empire is less than that. But I definitely agree that we are going to win. There's no, I mean, it's going to be pain in the real short term, but we are going to win.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I make that same point. But what you said about Lincoln, I make that point in my book that's coming out, The American Experiment, which is essentially the idea of the book is that, like, we've had this, America is an experiment in limited government, and the argument in the book that I make is that experiment failed on I think it was July 4th, 1863 at the Battle of Vicksburg, where Lincoln and Grant learned how effective making war on civilians can actually be. Right, that's when the war changed. Up until that moment, it really looked like the American people were gonna defeat the government. It really looked like the people were gonna win. And then they literally resorted to terrorist tactics, and the war changed. And you're right. Ever since then, it's been a completely different relationship between the citizen and the state, and it's really been all downhill from there, frankly.
Well, it feels like that they're sending their best efforts at us, which is like Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci.
Yeah.
And I think
they're going to say
really
Anthony Weiner.
Well, he's their previous best, I suppose.
Yeah,
but,
right.
It's these people just aren't super impressive to me. And I think COVID really helped wake a lot of people up to whether it's just seeing what their kids are actually being taught in school, to how far their government's going to go to lock them down and not let them have a life. without their permission.
And that's the thing. It's like, are they going to go out and they're going to still vote for these people after they have shut their businesses down, they have kept them away from their dying relatives? Are they still going to go out and pull the lever in November? And I think that there's going to be it's going to be a frightening amount of people who will do that.
I can't believe that anyone is still in California or New York after what happened. Just sadists, as far as I can tell.
That's exactly why I got out. I was in New York, and I remember getting off the train at Penn Station, and there was guys in camouflage with rifles, and I'm not allowed to have one. And I'm thinking, and I walk outside and there's tanks on the street, and I'm thinking to myself, it's probably time to start looking for another place.
I mean, that's literally that's dystopian movie level. Like, oh, this is America, land of the free. That would never happen there.
And it's like, up there, you're paying so much money for the cost of living, and it's like, once they shut down the bars and the clubs, and you can't do anything, all of a sudden it's like, what am I paying all that money for? To to live with roaches,
Yeah.
At that point, you're just locked in a small box.
Right.
So they literally had, like, during COVID or whatever, they had tanks on the streets.
Oh, this was like the beginning of COVID. First of all, there's military on the streets of New York City every day. Like, when you go into Penn Station, there's guys with camo and rifles, because they're waiting for like a mass shooter. Whereas here now in Florida, they don't have to do that because everybody has a gun. So there's no military because every single person has a gun on them. But up there, it's you have one or two guys in camo who sit at stations, at certain, predetermined locations, and they are just sort of waiting for something to happen. And and when COVID happened, it was really ugly. There was like tanks, and there was like Bearcats riding around, and I'm talking the streets were empty because they shut down your businesses. All the bars were shut down, the restaurants were shut down. So the only people, it looked like a ghost town. I mean, it was like something out of the movies that people, I don't know. It's New York City. They really did a number on that place. They really ruined it.
I mean, it sounds like a literal war zone.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the shops and restaurants shut down for good, pretty much, from what I hear.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the best, and it's like some of the best bars. I mean, bars that have been open for literally 90 years, almost 100 years, they had to shut down because they were forced to pay astronomical rents, by the way, which of course is a product of the city's, wonderful, zoning laws and housing regulations and stuff like that. So they're already paying these astronomical bills. And then you tell them that they can't actually do business for a year, and they still have to pay those bills. It's absurd. And then, they asked Cuomo about it when he was still around. And he said, oh, well, just, don't pay your bills and the Federal Reserve will just have to cover it. So in other words, the people in Florida who never did shut down are going to have to pay for the people who did shut down in New York, New Jersey, California, and so on.
That's right.
And we'll print our way out.
All these crazy places.
So
We'll print
Sal,
our way out, and that's why you have $10 a dozen eggs. And that's why we're at where we're at. Yeah.
That's why you have free eggs.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not free. We put a little effort into it. We put a little
You know
labor.
what I mean.
I wanted to ask you, Sal, from this perspective of what you've seen happening in New York with just everything that's happening now, from the globalist perspective. So this has been a huge shift in my thinking of thinking like, oh, it's the United States government. It's the United States government. Fuck them. Until finally realizing, I mean, still fuck them, but finally realizing, or at least feeling like this is globalist. Like, this is the global order that is rolling out as we speak. Like, they're cranking it up to 10. That's kind of what I was thinking. I want to get your take on that angle of it. And then the other thing was, I wanted to throw out there that, so it was listening to the Propaganda Report podcast, which is how we were in Discord together and how this podcast came together. But one of the people on that podcast, Monica Perez, said that she thought they were trying, like, intentionally third worlding places like New York City, like, San Francisco, LA, the big cities first, right? Chicago. So to make it unlivable, basically, for most people, clear them out, then you can start building smart city, track and trace, like the 5G, the Internet of Things cities.
Yeah, so I guess so like the first part of your question, it's funny that you say that, because it's funny that you bring it up, because this was a main topic in my book that I'm just about to come out, The American Experiment. And the idea, honestly, I didn't even mean for it to be like this. Ashley, it was really, I just wanted to follow the research where it led me. And what I realized was that it was sort of unavoidable to discuss this sort of cabal of elite financial interests who are sort of act like puppet masters behind the scenes. And, everyone knows, everyone understands that, money influences the decisions of elected officials. But once you begin to name names, and once you start to name institutions, you're a conspiracy theorist. Then you have your tinfoil hat on, and that's how they smear you. That's how they sort of dismiss that conversation that way. And from what I can tell, is there has been an elite financial interest in control of America's affairs at every flex point in American history. So in the colonial era, we had Robert Morris influencing the decisions of Alexander Hamilton. He was the richest man in America at the time. A lot of court historians refer to him, they say that he is the financier of the revolution, but Murray Rothbard said that it's more accurate to say that the revolution financed Morris. And that is a pattern that plays out throughout American history up until today, up until right now. So in the Civil War, you had John Jay, I'm sorry, not John Jay, Jay Cook, who was, he had a monopoly on the issuance of bonds that they were using to pay for the war. And again, I go through all of that in the book, but what happened is towards the end of the 19th century, this is going to sound crazy, but this is all true. And I realized a lot of this while in the course of research for this book. Cecil Rhodes was, he is really where it started. And this was a man, this sounds batshit crazy. Can I curse? Can I say it? This is going to sound crazy. He actually wanted to bring the United States back into the fold of Great Britain.
Right. And
he wanted to make, so you know this then.
Well, I had heard a bit about from Richard Grove was talking about this, and actually that there's documents tying even Cecil B. Rhodes with, I think is it the Rockefellers or
and the Rothschilds. So like there was this huge rabbit hole that really delayed the writing of this book, because I just got lost in this whole power elite analysis. And so Cecil Rhodes had this secret society that he created for the purposes of bringing the US back into the fold of the UK. And there was two sort of houses to this operation, two sort of jurisdictions. In Europe, there was the Rothschilds, and in America, there was the Morgan Rockefeller branch. And each of these sort of branches would act behind the scenes to sort of bring about this sort of Anglo-American alliance. And it was wildly successful, because in World War I, England sort of, they sort of took advantage of the situation. They were like, oh, look, if we come out on top of this, we can sort of redraw that map in our favor. And when they did get involved, and they were like, oh, this is a little bit more of a fight than we thought. Hey, America, if you guys get involved, we can really tip the scales in our favor. And they did. And when we had this Anglo-American alliance, the whole weight of it fall down on the triple axis. They were able to write this very lopsided treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, and they were able to dictate terms to Germany that created a very, very unfavorable conditions for the Germans, which led to that this is of course a book in and of itself, the reaction to Versailles that created Marxism in Germany, which led to a nationalist reaction. And that's how we got Hitler. And again, that's a whole nother story. A lot of the things Hitler was doing in World War II, initially, at least, he started by saying, oh, well, we're going to take back all that land that was taken from us. We're going to get it back. And I'm the guy who's going to make it, respectable to be German again. And that is sort of, that's sort of the story of World War II. And then, by the way, you can cut me off whenever you want. I'm just
Well,
sort of rambling here.
I love that. I just did have a couple of questions. So first
Yeah.
of all, considering the environment that was set up in Germany for the rise of really this, like, I guess you could say, the right-wing backlash, do you feel that is coming here? I was introduced to Cyprian or Vin Armani I heard it on your podcast years ago. And so I have followed him, and that is one of the things that he has been talking about, is sort of the rise of, well, he calls it the sons of Peterson, because he feels, not to speak for him, it seems like he feels like this reaction is coming because of the nonsense that has been crammed down our throats for, however long now.
Right.
And then the other thing that I wanted to ask, and I know, sorry, this is a lot, but I just have so many thoughts. Do you feel that there is like a Knights Templar, or a very, like, that the banking cabal goes back even further?
So, like, just in terms of like, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure I don't lose train of thought. So like, in terms of like globalization and nationalism, I think what's going on, and like my initial degree is like in political science. That's sort of how I kind of got involved in all this. So like all of my answers are going to reflect that. But the way I see all this happening is that the internet and technology has made us so interconnected. It's created a sort of global civilization almost. Like we see like regional accents are dying out slowly but surely, because people have sort of like, you can wake up and you can talk to somebody in Nepal before you talk to somebody on the other side of your house now. And that sort of has created this like global community. And as a response to that, people are trying to hold on to some sense of identity. They're trying to, whether that like comes out in terms of like their national identity or their religious identity or something. But that's how you get guys like Trump or people like Marine Le Pen or someone like that, or Nigel Farage or something like that. You get these like sort of backlashes to globalization. You get the people are saying like, no, I do have an identity. Here's what it is. So I think that's what's going on there, and I think that's going to keep happening. And who knows where that's going to take us? If hopefully that doesn't turn into a hot war. But considering the people in charge nowadays, nothing would surprise me.
This seems to feel like the logical pendulum swinging back the other way. Since World War II, it's essentially been illegal to be German, right? I mean, in Germany, you cannot have German pride. It's more or less illegal.
Well, you still can't have Southern pride, and it's 150
you cannot,
years later.
Exactly. A great point. Isn't this the logical pendulum swinging the other way? I mean,
a lot of people, Sam Konkin, you see this flag here? This is the Culpeper Minuteman flag. Sam Konkin had the rebel flag, Robert E. Lee's battle flag, hanging over his couch. If I did that today, people would be like, they would go nuts. They would treat me like I was like, I had like, AIDS or something like that. But, the bottom line is anybody who sort of takes on the feds or opposes them, even ideologically, you're enemy number one, and you are, a conspiracy theorist. You are, the worst of the worst, and they will do anything possible to paint you in that light. But just going back to what Ashley said about the cabal and like how far back it goes, honestly, I would imagine that there is at some point, there's always like an elite financial interest behind every war, although I don't know. My research, honestly, I've only researched it as far back as Cecil Rhodes, but it would not surprise me in the least bit to find out if you had some war, actually, you know, I shouldn't even say that, because in the book I do go into like Greek and Roman history, and in the Greek times, I know that there was, in fact, the whole push for democracy in Athens was brought about by the elites, right? They were sort of losing power, and they thought to themselves, as dictators still do today, hey, look, if everybody votes for me, then my power is more legitimate. And that's how we got sort of this direct democracy in Greece. And that's, you know, what's still going on today.
People sort of make
think
a false
somebody-
choice, don't
sorry,
they?
Terry.
Sorry, Stel. I was just going to say, people make a false choice between nationalism and globalism, as if, you know, so the reaction against globalism is nationalism, rather than, like you were talking about, looking for local solutions where you just sort of basically disconnect from the nation and the globalists.
Exactly.
Sorry, Stels.
I just wanted to say a couple of things here. Firstly, Sal, you may be interested if you don't already know about it. I'm from Australia, and looking into the Eureka Stockade. Have you heard of that?
No.
That might interest you just as a topic to read about. It was basically Australia's rebellion during the gold rush. So basically, when there's protests and things going on here, a lot of who are aware of what's going on will often bring the Eureka Stockade flag out. So yeah,
okay.
just a topic that you might be interested to look at.
Well,
The other thing that I wanted to,
I
sorry.
should tell you, I'm a big fan of Kerry Packer. I'm a Kerry Packer libertarian.
Kerry Packer.
You should.
Okay.
I'm surprised you don't know that name.
I know Kerry Packer. I'm a cricket fan,
Oh,
so I know Kerry Packer.
I know Kerry Packer, yeah.
Okay.
And his son James Packer, who was actually married to that was the singing chick with a really high voice. Not Marianne.
All I saw was him like take the parliament to town, and I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know. You know more about him than I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, his son Packer is very big in the casino industry. I think his father would be quite sure. But anyway, somebody else who doesn't get much is Andrew Carnegie. At the beginning of like in the 1900s, whatever, he's forged the past John D. Rockefeller when he was very wrapped up in the steel industry, which was very, very key to the elite. But his name doesn't come up quite, Charles. But Carnegie was very, very key.
Well, you know what's funny is, sorry, I just watched a video yesterday about how Carnegie was such a great philanthropist, and he gave away, you know, close to $1 billion. It was a YouTube video. It was a normie video.
All those foundations are extremely dodgy, aren't they? Carnegie Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Gates.
Well, and they call their foundations things like, you know, the
Foundation for Lovely
International
Stuff.
Peace.
Right,
Peace Palace.
Right.
You know, freedom this and freedom that. It always rings alarm bells for me.
Well, you're absolutely right. One of the things that's interesting is that after the second generation of Kabbalists had died out in America, after and some of these people lived a very long time. Like once J.P. Morgan's son died, and once John D. Rockefeller's son was sort of too old to be of any use, they shifted their influence. No longer was their influence on individuals, but they actually created these international institutions to exercise influence, like the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, even things like as benign sounding as the Chamber of Commerce and stuff like that. And it's they've become sort of think tanks almost. Or like, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. Like,
they kind of a front. It kind of takes the heat off an individual, as you said, and more into an institution. So it takes the people and the faces out, and just makes it a corporate body.
But it's still Rockefeller money. It's still run by the same people. It's still Morgan money. And when you look at the people who are influencing the decisions that elected officials make today, all roads lead to Rome, right? It all goes back to
Correct.
the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations,
Yeah.
the Rockefeller Foundation, or one of their
Yes.
somebody who has some connection to them in some way or another, right?
Yeah, it's a sort
Absolutely.
of finishing school for a lot of politicians as well, isn't it? You know, that they put them into key places. And
Oh yeah, Murray Rothbard called it a permanent government, and
Yeah.
you know, it's honestly sick. It's actually sick when you actually figure out how these people have, you know, what they did in World War One, and then again in World War Two, and in the Cold War, and then in the Middle Eastern wars. It's just, it makes you sick.
Every
You know,
war.
and yeah, for sure. That's why I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised to find out if there was some sort of elite behind every war, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're just masquerading as the World Economic Forum.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
That's a
business of
great example.
international. Yeah.
Do you have any ideas who might have sabotaged the Nordstroms? Speaking, you know, while we're on war, it seems like we're starting to get real close to World War III.
And it's crazy because the pattern that we're falling into very closely resembles the pattern in 1917, right? Where you have a sort of Eastern European regional skirmish, or an Eastern European border dispute that Western Europe is trying to turn into a continental war, and that America is trying to turn into a world war, all for the benefit of elite financial interests.
It's like they're literally risking like the end of the world, the end of humanity. Which
I think
Well, see, that's the thing. They're
gotta
risking
realize-
our lives. They're not risking their lives.
Right. They have their bunkers and their
Right.
supplies and their water. Maybe they figured out that their, you know, depopulation nonsense isn't going to work out, so they got that reset button just standing by to,
You know, my suspicion is that I really think this is all about the Federal Reserve, and I think that they have to sort of drum up ways to keep up demand for all the dollars that they've printed in order to avoid hyperinflation. They have to sort of keep that velocity of money moving, and if it becomes stagnant or if it sits too long, then you're going to get that sort of hyperinflationary disaster that they don't want.
This
And
is just
I
my
I
gut.
believe. I think they want
Oh,
the
man.
economic reset, and I think they're doing everything to achieve that. I think COVID was all about that. I think the Ukraine
Yeah, I
situation
agree.
was about that.
And I was gonna say, I just read a tweet, it might have been yesterday, last night, from Kim.com. And that's what he said. He's like, look, they are desperate. America is desperate to have World War III right now because they have, as you
Yeah.
were saying earlier, Sal, they have painted themselves into the position right now that, you know, America is on the brink of financial collapse. However, that I agree with that, but I wonder how it all really fits together, right? Because we know that one of the goals of the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum crowd, is to take America from the world's dominant superpower or whatever to now it's no longer that way. It's a group of nation states, including China, including Russia. So that's something that I've really been trying to figure out is where does this all play in? You know, we see the rise of BRICS, which tracks with what that stated goal is. And it also tracks in order to try to, you know, for them to basically launder money the way
Well, see, like the way I see it is the political aspect of this is sort of subservient to the financial aspect of it. The politicians are sort of they're just working for the elites at this point, and it's not to save their hide; it's to save the bankers, right? It really is. It really is sick because all of these wars are. It sounds cliche, but they really are banker wars. All of them. Going back to World War One and World War II, they're all banker wars, and this one is no different. It's no different. Just because we're in modern times. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I would even go further to say that you said that the politicians are working for the elite. I would take it a step further and say that they have been bred and placed by the elite.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. In World War One, there was this sort of the Morgans had lent money to France and England, and they sort of had an interest to see a decisive victory for the Allies, and that's sort of how we sort of got pushed into it. In World War II, again, the Morgans had made those loans out to Western Europe, but this time also, the Rockefellers were concerned about Japanese expanding into the oil-rich territories and encroaching on their business in Southeast Asia. And sure as shit, as soon as World War II ended, who got monopoly oil concessions in South Asia? The Rockefellers. And
Yeah.
that lasted sort of slowly over time. The Saudis kind of eased them away, but they still to this day have a very close working relationship. And in the early 90s, it was much more so the case. And Kuwait's ruling family, the Sabah family, had major deposits at Morgan and Rockefeller-oriented banks. So that's how we sort of wound up in the first Gulf War. And that sort of, then bin Laden didn't want us there. And we sort of never went home after that. And that sort of led to 9/11. And that led to Iraq and Afghanistan and all the bullshit we have today. And it sort of just parlays one into another, into another, into another. But one of the things that Bob Higgs, I don't know if you guys know who Bob Higgs is, wonderful economist, historian, but he says, look, they make these wars, whether they're manufactured or they're naturally occurring, we have these wars and the governments take advantage of them, and they, the government, the state expands dramatically during a time of war. But in order to pay for that expansion, the elites, the cabalists, are called upon to expand the money supply. And as a result of that expansion, we have an ensuing recession, a drawback, a sort of financial crisis that follows not too long after. Sound familiar, right? If you're 30 years old today,
Yeah.
at least 30 years old or older,
That
know
old
what I'm talking
chestnut.
about.
You-
So that's
you can't-
another excuse used for further expansion of the state, and it's just sort of snowballs one into another.
Yeah.
That's right. You can't imagine that the people running the Federal Reserve and the people running the Federal, like, they know, there's no way they can't know about the boom and bust cycle and what they're doing. I can't imagine there's any way that they're that stupid. So
Everybody says they're that stupid, and it drives me nuts. They're not that stupid.
They're not that
They're
stupid.
not.
Right.
So that they have a contingency plan for when shit initially, I mean, it's inevitably going to hit the fan one of these days. So that they've thought of a million different ways that they can take care of whatever they need to.
Well,
Alan
that was
Greenspan was a Randian. He was a disciple of Ayn Rand. He wrote his college thesis about like the gold standard, and he was friends with Walter Block. I mean, it's crazy how. And then, of course,
And then when he gets
into a position of power, and guess what? All of a sudden, he starts making decisions that diametrically oppose every belief he's ever expounded in his entire life.
He knows the rules of the game. He wins the game.
Exactly.
That's it.
Do you think they gave him the JFK treatment when he got the job? They showed him okay, this is how we do
That's my
things around
suspicion. That's my suspicion, honestly.
And then what hasn't he come out like pro gold and everything else since after he was in the Fed? Or am I
remember Ron Paul held up his college thesis one time. It was like, you said right here, and like he just sort of stumbled over his words, and he didn't really know what to say because he was caught. He got caught red-handed.
Yeah, say God bless Ron Paul. I got him as my
I
background.
love it. I love it.
Well, the other thing that I have been wondering about is, okay, so I think that what they're doing with the inflation and basically what they have been doing this entire time, however far it goes back, is essentially stealing the wealth from the back of the working man. So at a point, don't they own enough? Like, when is that precipice, if that makes sense? Like, when have they bled us dry, and then like when is that point reached? And okay, I'm sorry, it's hard to
They don't
articulate.
care. They don't care about you or me or anyone else. You know what they care about? They care about power and holding on to it. That's it.
That's
Yes.
one thing.
Right.
They
They
don't
will
need our tax dollars.
sacrifice children around. They've done it before.
Already been doing it.
Look at the wars, the battles fought in the Pacific during World War II. They were some of those bloody, vicious, hand-to-hand combat. And do you think that they didn't lose sleep over this? They could care less. They're sound asleep.
They are
in their
true
mansions.
psychopaths.
Yeah,
Yes.
really.
They are 100% actual psychopaths.
So,
Literally.
but-
Lawyers
It is about
It's not
power.
about the money.
This is not about money. I mean,
It's not about
business
the
is
oh, okay. Because that
But
war
was
is
print-
business.
that's
if
what
you can
I
print if you can print as much money as you want, it's definitely not about the money. It's
Yeah,
more about
that's-
control. I think.
Yeah.
They
Right.
Yes.
want to control the
They-
world and they
Okay.
want to control all of us because
Okay.
they don't think
Yep.
much of us. Like Sal
They've
was
got
saying.
private planes and mansions. They've got private islands that, Epstein Island and shit like that we don't know about.
Mhm.
God only knows
Since
what they have,
21.
that we'll never even learn about. So
Right.
again, it's about holding on to power, not letting it go, and to sort of preserving it for the next generation of elites.
okay.
Let's look at Nancy Pelosi. She's 80 years old, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And like, how do people, like supposedly good Democrats, they just show up and vote for her? Like, this is literally the exact like
They love her.
diametrically opposed. Like, this is what you're against. But
Okay,
I guess
It's not even the Pelosi stuff. I get, because she's in a safe district. She's been there forever. People in San Francisco are wacky and stuff like that. It's the like, did you guys see that video of AOC being confronted at that town hall?
yes,
That was
sir.
good.
So that's
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
that's what perplexes me. It's like you have these people who have run as radicals, and then they've sort of stabbed their constituency in the back. Like Ron Paul would never. Could you imagine Ron Paul voting for gun control or something like that? He would never do something like that. So it's like, how did the radicals, how do they sort of maintain that fiction?
Let me ask
I
you.
find that very puzzling how all these so-called lefties are so pro-war now.
Do
I
you
know.
Do you think that voting is real? I don't want to get you into trouble, but I mean, it'd be real easy to keep all these lunatics in power when, they just make
That goes back to
voting
what
happen
Stella was
however
saying.
they want.
Are they bred for it, and do they count? I mean, if they're bred for it and they don't count the votes, you're in.
Right. Right. And exactly. And it's like I start off the book, The American Experiment, by saying, and exactly what we were talking about earlier with Greece. And it's like these Greek aristocrats figured out what Hitler, Stalin, Mao, and US presidents, and God only knows who else they've also figured out. The best way to legitimize your rule is by having ballots cast in its favor. And they whether or not those ballots are real or false. I mean, come on. Who really thinks that what was that election they just had in Ukraine or something like that, where they all voted for Russia?
Oh, the
It's like-
annex.
Right. And or it's like what's the other one too? I don't know. Every now and then you see these like 80 million votes or something like that. I don't know. It's at the end of the day, the problem is not that the votes are rigged. It's that the system of voting itself is inherently flawed. No one has the right to vote on another man's paycheck. My rights are not up for discussion. They're not for a vote. You know what I mean? So the whole system is inherently flawed from the start.
Can I say something about that? In Australia, voting is compulsory. If we don't
Sick.
vote, we are fined. We are fined, and it's a hefty fine. But I just want to quote Mark Twain here with, if voting made a difference, they wouldn't let us do it. I think it's a huge illusion. It's just purely they're playing the game and making us think we have some sort of input, and then they're doing whatever their plans were originally. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. And it's sort of a way to sort of placate the citizens, to sort of, yes. Look, well, first of all, it's a way to placate the citizens and to say, look, you guys have voted for this and stuff like that, but it's also legitimizes the system. It legitimizes their rule.
Yes,
hey, look,
yes.
you took part in this, right? You wanted this. You voted for this.
Yeah.
80 million votes this guy got, right? Come on.
Government by the people.
Yeah, right.
How often have you heard, well, if you didn't vote, you can't complain?
Right.
Yep, exactly.
And which I like with George Carlin's take, which is like, no, it's the exact opposite. You know, I didn't vote, so you can't blame me for fucking things up.
Right? I
You
don't
know?
consent to any of this shit.
Right.
And you know, I mean, I was a child when I realized we only have to take their word for the amount of votes that were supposedly cast. How do we know that's what was cast? We just have to believe them.
Prove it. Prove it.
Yeah, they can't. We can
And-
never.
and-
It can never be proven.
And it's like, honestly, even if you
ask
did
for
prove it,
oh, go ahead, Sal. Sorry.
I was just even if they did prove it, I don't, you know, if the whole world votes that I have to do something, that's still not legitimate. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, true. Good point.
Well, it's basically the Lysander Spooner take of, you know,
Right.
the social contract. I didn't sign up for anything.
Mm.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
man, we need more Lysander Spooners in 2022.
That's
think we
why
got
we need millions of Lysander Spooners at this point.
We got 7 on the Zoom call at least.
Yes, we do.
that's why the you know, the elites and the politicians are not so keen on talking about rights now, you know, fundamental rights, because as you say, you shouldn't really have the right to vote down someone else's fundamental rights to liberty or, you know, property or whatever.
Right.
So,
But they don't care about that. They, you know, they're debating your rights every day. And
Yeah.
you know, how much
They're
you should have and shouldn't have, and what you can say now and what you can't say.
They're
Well,
debating on whether or not
mandatory-
your son should have a penis.
Yeah.
That's what they're
I mean,
debating.
it's
Important stuff.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I
Yeah.
did, speaking of what you can say, and obviously we know that censorship has been, I mean, it's at a fever pitch at this point. So how does that affect your decision making for what, because you post, you know, spicy stuff. So how have you been feeling about that? Or like, how does that sort of affect? Because on one hand, you do want to be like, fuck you, you're not going to tell me what I can say. But on the other hand, you worked hard for that account. Like you've been grinding to have 100-some thousand followers. That's, you know, for a Liberty account to have that many followers is huge. So,
You know, on the one hand, it's like, I honestly don't give a shit in some sense. Like in one sense, it's like really like it's a fucking Twitter account. You know what I mean? Like, who gives a shit? I'm going to keep posting memes, whether if I have 1 follower or 1 million followers, it doesn't really make a difference to me. However, from a business perspective and a marketing perspective, yeah, like that would be huge. If I lost my account on Twitter, I would probably have to go out and get a job again and stuff like that. But I have like a Facebook page with like 20 or 30,000 followers. I'm growing my other accounts, or almost as like a sort of insurance policy, but I don't censor myself. I really don't. And I get suspended for the dumbest shit, Ashley. I mean, like the dumbest shit. Like when the Tampa Bay Bucks won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I posted a video. This is like mid-COVID hysteria. I posted a video on Main Street. Everybody's dancing. They're on top of cars. They're throwing beer cans and everybody's partying. Nobody's wearing a mask right here in Florida, of course. And I posted a video of this, and I got suspended for promoting violence because nobody had a mask on. I'm not even making that up. All I did was post a video of like the Super Bowl celebration.
Unfortunately, I believe you. Like you could have made that up, and I'd still believe you.
Dude, all kinds of crazy shit. There was just something else that I just got like a 7-day suspension for something else that was ridiculous. And I think the way they do it is each suspension increases with like the length or the severity of it until finally they're like, screw you, you're out. You don't get to have an account anymore.
My first question
was right up there.
My first question was, how have you not been banned from Twitter yet? That's the first thing I wrote down.
Oh, frequently banned. I'm banned all the time. At this point, I'm banned more often than I'm not. But
do you think Elon Musk buying Twitter is going to change that?
Fingers crossed. But you know, you learn the algorithm. Like I can tell you that if you say retard or retarded, then the algorithm is on top of you like white on rice, and there's just boom, you're gone. If you say, even if you're just joking with like one of your buddies, like, oh man, I'm gonna kill you or something like that, then you're done. You're just
You have the
you're
Fed
gone.
showing up at your house.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I know it. But
If you're in
that's-
UK too. Yeah.
That's the real concern. I don't care what was in the Twitter account. I'm really, I shouldn't say concerned, but
It's
let's put it
always
like this.
there.
Yeah, like I don't want to knock on the door and have like 2 ATF agents standing outside, because I'm not the best person for that kind of interaction to occur.
Right. I did want to ask, are you okay on time, Sal? Are we keeping you?
Yeah.
We just
No,
want
no,
to make
no.
sure that we're respectful of your time.
Rock and roll, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you're not as you are and you are not as far as censorship goes, super concerned, but I'm concerned about absolutely, especially after the intervention and what the way that people that attended January 6th were treated. That's when I really became concerned about the federal visits to the door for a meme or a tweet.
I know it's
yeah.
Canada too, but it's the truckers up there. It was the playbook that they're going to use.
That was insane. That was absolutely insane. You know, all of that stuff though, to me, what that does is that just shows how important, because you saw like the truckers, they had their bank accounts removed.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks,
Frozen.
yeah, right. WikiLeaks, they wouldn't let you donate to people. And even now there was just something in the news that Kanye West just had his bank account canceled for a tweet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the way I
And the
look at all
PayPal
this,
thing.
yeah, PayPal, right, is this is the whole point of you know, Bitcoin Cash and cryptocurrency. And when I tell people, even if you don't like Bitcoin and you're, you know, old school, you want, you know, silver coins and gold coins, become your own bank. However you're going to do it, become your own bank, because once you take that power away from them, you remove their ability to threaten you with depriving you of using their financial services, right? Because once you sort of are self-sufficient in that regard, financially and monetarily, it becomes very difficult to oppress that person. And I've always said that the most important thing you could do is to become independent in a financial sense from the government. And that's step one.
Speaking of independent banking, I assume you're familiar with the infinite banking concept.
Yeah, Bob Murphy. And yeah.
Is that something that you practice or anything like that?
I don't practice it, but I'm familiar with it, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. I think it's, you know, a much better way to use a legacy banking system. The key here is that you don't want your money to wind up being used to starve some child, some 5-year-old little girl in Yemen who you've never met and have no problem with. And the only way to do that is to keep it out of the hands of the elite bankers that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, I'm sure the same people that give you the insurance policies for the IBC are the same people that are full in with the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, you know, the social governance programs.
Yeah, and it's still a third party, by the way, that you're gonna have to contend with. Rather than PayPal, it'll just be your insurance company. So it's not a perfect system by any means, for sure.
Yeah, I would like to encourage people to really put some serious thought into stopping their subscriptions to places like Netflix, etc., because we really, by doing that, you are funding the New World Order, whether you like it or not. That's the truth.
Yeah, and geez, Netflix, didn't they have that like pedophile show?
Cuties.
Yeah, they got in trouble for that. Cuties. Or
Not only
Kitty, whatever
that,
it was.
My wife still watches Netflix, and some of the shit she puts on, I'm like, that's like obviously Satanist. Like they're like,
oh yeah,
practicing human sacrifice and shit. Like I think it's
like hilarious.
Wild.
Give credit to Tiger King. That's all I got to say. Tiger.
Yeah. So let me make an unrelated point that I've observed. What is with all of these serial killer shows? Why is everybody obsessed with watching people murder other human beings? That's entertainment. Like, what does that say about modern society? What does it say about us when we consider entertaining to watch
Right.
other human beings suffer and die and be killed.
That was
Netflix
even
is pushing
It's
on
desensitization.
that
yeah,
was South
Netflix is
Park
pushing
10 years
pushing
ago
something.
It's
with the
crazy.
murder porn. It's literally murder porn.
They've been
Literally.
desensitizing us for decades.
Yeah, and I guess when you're planning on creating world wars, you sort of have to desensitize people. You sort of have to sort of ease them into it. Again, not to keep bringing up the book, but like that's another point I make in the book is how the Civil War was sort of like the lubricant for the dick that was World War I and World War II, right? Like because if and by the way, that's also true in Europe of at the same time that Lincoln was uniting the American states by force, in Germany they were uniting the principalities by force. So if we didn't have those two bloody events of unification occurring at the same time, it's unlikely that Western people would have accepted the death tolls of like World War I, like the Battle of the Somme, with like 1 million people died in one battle, or Verdun with like 700,000, or Passchendaele or the Marne. People would not have found that to be an acceptable quantity of death if they weren't first eased into it by Lincoln and those guys.
Well, now the Twitter warriors are saying they're gonna fight the Ukraine war down to the last Ukrainian.
Oh, I know. It's sick. It's sick. It's sick. And they don't care.
If you mention nuclear holocaust, that's going to end the human race. They're just okay. You're you're a Russian.
Racist. You're a racist.
Yeah.
You're transphobic or something.
I'm on Team Human. Like, please listen to me.
It's okay. I got a white pill.
Yeah, well,
okay.
They've spent many, many decades in studying, the MK Ultras, etc. These psychological studies. They know how we operate. They know we don't want to be humiliated. They know we don't want to be on the outer. So that's all I got to do. It's so simple. It really is so simple.
Crazy.
They've got it all figured out.
Me and Stella already know that nukes are fake. We'll be okay.
And gay.
Well,
I've been hearing a lot about that lately.
I first heard Owen Benjamin.
I can't say I know,
years
but
ago, and I haven't put any further research into it. But I'm no longer convinced that nukes are real.
Well, I can tell you
there is enough question. Put it that way.
I can tell you that from my research on World War II that I did for the book. There's a lot of Japanese who would disagree. There's hundreds of thousands who might disagree.
Is it the dick size thing?
No.
Oh, all right. Sorry, boys.
Okay, so we are coming up kind of on our time. So before we head out, though, I just want to see if anybody has any more questions for Sal. And Sal, if you could give us a little more information about, I can't imagine that anybody listening to this doesn't already know about all of your work, but if you would like to share, your websites, how they can support you, and especially tell us about your game plan for the books that you've already put out.
Yeah. So, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. I was just, can I ask you one question since we talked about Rothbard a lot? Favorite Rothbard book? That anyone, like the one that anyone has to go out and read that's never heard of Rothbard.
Oh, that one, of course, is Anatomy of the State.
That's what I figured. But
my favorite, there's so many good ones. You can just pick at random,
Well, it's all just wisdom, is what it comes down.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. You pick history, logic, economics. The man does it all, and he does it all better than anyone else. He's your go-to. If there's a subject you're interested in out there, if anybody out there is listening, Rothbard has written a piece on it, or he's given a speech about it, and it's probably the best source you can find on that topic.
And I do believe that most of his works, if not all of them, are on Mises.org for free.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of audiobooks on there for free as well, if that's more your thing. I could be
I think that
mistaken
they're
about
all,
that.
I think that they're basically all have been transcribed at this point. And like that includes like the major volumes, like Conceived in Liberty, Man, Economy and State, like all the big ones. You can get that in audio too.
So you can't beat free audiobook. Listen to it while you're driving around, learn something.
And Rothbard, yeah, man, like you can't pick someone better than Rothbard to learn from. So if I had to pick one book for anybody out there who's unfamiliar, it's Anatomy of the State for sure. But I think you'll find, as I did, that once you open up that Pandora's box, there's no coming out of it.
You're going.
That's it.
It's really the Matrix metaphor of taking that red pill, and
It really is.
Now you can never see the world the same again.
Can I tell you a quick story? I know you guys want to wrap up. Quick
No,
story.
please.
I actively avoided Rothbard because I always knew, like, I didn't want to be one of these wacky anarchists, right? Because no one's going to take you seriously if you're one of these crazy people. And if somebody said, all right, come on here, we're going to watch Rothbard, I would go the other way. And I would not read any of his books or anything. I was always a history nerd. And there's this man named Ralph Raico. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
Mm.
He's a famous historian. And I started reading Ralph Raico books. I started watching Ralph Raico lectures on YouTube. And before I know it, I'm like, this guy's an anarchist? This guy reminds me of, like, you know, someone's grandpa or something like that. He's just like a friendly, knowledgeable old guy. And I thought, well, you know what, if he's harmless, so, you know, maybe Rothbard is harmless too. So let me look up Rothbard. And that was it. And then it was just all downhill. And then I was, you know, hook, line, and sinker. And that was it.
So then you start YouTube and Ron Paul and
well, no, I was Ron Paul before that, and I came from like neoconservative warmongering. I was like this brainwashed fool, and then Ron Paul opened my eyes. I was a minarchist who avoided Rothbard, and then I slowly that's when I started watching Ralph Raico videos, and that was the end of that. Because Raico and Rothbard and Leonard Eligio, there was a whole little clique of those guys back in the day. And you can't listen to one without listening to all the other guys too. They're all brilliant, frankly.
Can't go wrong situation.
No, right, exactly.
So anyways, I didn't mean to take us down a long tangent and interrupt your plug. So please go ahead.
No. The book is Anti-Politics. That's the book that's out now. You can pick that up on Amazon. Ashley's got a copy. The new book coming out is going to be called The American Experiment, and that should be out. I'm just waiting for the forward to be written, and then should be out, I'm thinking maybe like another month or two tops, hopefully.
Okay.
And other than that, 3D Printer Go Burr, where you can buy 3D printers and 3D printing supplies for cryptocurrency, avoid those KYC payment platforms. AgoraThreads.com for libertarian and anarchist apparel, clothing, stuff like that. The website saltheagorist.com, where I sort of put everything under one title. Other than that, follow me on social media, Sal Mayweather, at Sal Mayweather, Sal the Agorist, something like that. I'm on all your different social media platforms. You can find me some way or another. But that's
Did you mention your podcast, Sal?
The podcast is called The Agora. It's been on pause for, at least for the summer, it was on pause. I am planning on revamping it sometime soon. When I have the time to get around to that, only God knows. Maybe like that'll probably be another couple months as well. But yeah, that's called The Agora, and all the old episodes are still up, like the one we mentioned earlier about 3D printing. So you can check all them out. There's a lot of good work in there. There's a lot of good topics that we cover: history, economics, counter-economics. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, that was where I was introduced to a lot of other people in the Liberty community, where I found other people like I've heard Pete Quinones on your show for the first time. I heard Cyprian on your show for the first time. You know, a lot of really, really good information. Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else, Sal?
I think that's all.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time to come on with us. We really appreciate it. We know we're unknowns.
Thank you.
It may not, do a lot for your numbers, but we really appreciate the conversation and your time.
Whenever
And-
you guys want to have me on, I would love to hop on. Not to invite myself, but
We
No,
would
you're
love
welcome to
that.
come on anytime. We'd love to have
Yeah.
you.
You're the most
I do
famous
need to,
person we've
Sal.
ever had.
What'd
I'm
you
sorry to
say,
hear
Terry?
that.
He's the what?
He's the most famous person we've ever had,
Oh.
isn't he?
Well, let's say in a lot of the Liberty circles, you're somewhat of a celebrity,
You
even
are.
if
Yeah.
it's just your memes that constantly go viral. So
I guess
if
that's a
nothing
good.
else,
I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you.
yes, if nothing else, follow him for great memes because
Yeah.
you'll see it one way or the other. Get it from
And
the
then you
source.
get roped in for the philosophy.
Yeah, you're doing the Lord's
Exactly.
work. You're waking people up. I mean, it matters, you know.
Trying.
And drinking red wine, that's my favorite.
Okay.
And yeah, you're welcome to come on anytime. We record every 2 Saturdays, so every couple weeks. So if you ever want to come on again, we'd love to have you. And
Absolutely.
create like a win-win. And when are you planning on launching your second book?
I'm hoping it won't be too much longer. I'm hoping like another month or two. I'm just waiting for the forward to be being finished.
Yeah.
Written
So
up, and
once
then
that's
it.
done, yeah, just
Yeah.
hit Ashley up. She manages the Twitter.
Yeah, I will.
So just hit us up, let us know. We'd love to have you on again for your book launch.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be that. You can just come on and hang out with us on a Saturday because we just talk about different things. Like the last time we talked about war, ironically enough, and then we've talked about climate change and how that mixed all in with it and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so
let's
it's just,
do it.
yeah.
Let's
So,
do it.
Definitely. I will for sure keep you updated, Sal. Would love to have you come on anytime. Thank you so
Let's
much.
do it. Thank you
Okay,
guys.
cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks
That was
a lot,
great.
Sal.
Fantastic night.
Bye. Have a
Nukes
good
are
night.
fake.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Union of the Unknowns. You can find new episodes every week on all your favorite podcasting networks.